I suspect that there are a lot of people who, when they think about people who live in Indiana, think of people who look like this. Oh, my husband and I kind of look like that.
I'm gonna make a change for once in my life.
But there's a whole bunch of us here in Indiana who look and sound a whole lot different.
That is so cute on you.
Thank you.
We're at the Indy International Festival in Indianapolis, Indiana. A chance to tap into the excitement of living in a multicultural city. A 3-day celebration that reflects the more than 130 nationalities and ethnic groups that live and work together every day as Hoosiers. If variety is the spice of life, and I believe it is, then events like the Indy International Festival confirm for us that life in Indiana is very spicy indeed.
This is your lifeline, and your lifeline is very clear, very well defined. That means you are quite healthy and you are very energetic.
New arrivals are nothing new. Life has moved in and out of this part of the world since the beginning of time. Events like the Indy International Festival can remind us of this. But the thing we need to hold on to is none of us started out here. Everyone who has ever lived in Indiana comes from a family that came here from someplace else. We are all immigrants, if we look back far enough in time. No exceptions. This is not a us versus them situation. We're all us, and we're all them. And when this festival is over, the people here don't return home to Mexico or the Philippines or Turkey or Germany. They return to their homes next to or down the street or around the corner from me and from you. And that's when the real fun starts. Really getting to know one another. Out there beyond the festival, in real, live, day-to-day life. At home. Your home, my home, our home. At work. Your work, my work, our work. At school. At worship. We begin to understand the fascinating ways our differences here in Indiana have caused life to change, both for new arrivals as well as for those of us who've lived here a while longer. We are so lucky. The presence and contributions of each of us have enriched the lives of all of us. Enjoy.
Generous support for this program provided by John Herbst, Andrew Halter, Jerry and Rosemary Semler, Donald R. Wilsey, the Midwest Open Air Museum's Coordinating Council, the Indiana Federation of Business and Professional Women, Indiana India Business Council, Don and Jen Kniebel, Valerie and Chuck Myers, the Bible Family Fund of the Denver Foundation, and the O'Bannon Foundation, a fund of the Indianapolis Foundation.
Was there really a here before we were here? Are we really all immigrants? No exceptions?
Picture before any of us came to the state of Indiana.
I'd like you to meet Harold Allison and Ebony Walls. Harold, who makes his home outside Washington, Indiana, is one of the Hoosier State's most celebrated naturalists. He's our guide to Indiana before the first human foot landed here. The young lady walking with Harold, Ebony Walls, manages the American Table, a nice local restaurant in Washington. Ebony is also the most recent in a long line of young people Harold has taken under his wing. Through Harold, Ebony's eyes are being opened to the exquisite wonders of nature and to what this place might have been like before any of us arrived in what is now Indiana. Also before, perhaps it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, there was a first human here to tell a second human here, a newcomer in other words, to go back home where you came from. What was it like back then, Harold?
They're swamps, virgin timber stands, clear water, unpolluted water. So peaceful, so beautiful, quiet. Just the sound of the birds, the insects. Paradise.
Harold Allison's other passion is the story of Indiana's first immigrants, the so-called Native Americans. He's the author of the book, The Tragic Saga of the Indiana Indians.
Okay, here comes a bigger one.
Harold has a secret place that almost nobody knows about. It's a place, Harold says, where his two grand passions, the great outdoors and our state's first immigrants, the Native Americans, come together. Here it is, Harold's place of history and nature. It's a pond full of turtles. Very symbolic turtles, according to Harold.
Yeah, well, the turtles we're seeing here figure very prominently in Native American culture and lore.
The significance of turtles to Native Americans stretches back through time, all the way back to the beginning of the beginning.
And it was Indian lore and legend that the earth was created by our grandmother who came down from the sky, created the earth on the back of a huge turtle.
Much more recently, historians and archaeologists have determined the route our first immigrants took to become our first immigrants.
The Native American came from Siberia across the Bering Straits, down the Pacific coast, along the western parts of the United States, along the Gulf Coast, and eventually wound up in the eastern part of the United States.
Including what is now Indiana.
Well, you know, I guess everybody can believe what they want to believe, but I can't believe it. I just think that's nonsense.
Well,
We first met Reg and Susan Petoskey at Wapasiki Sipiwi Mound Historical Park, just outside Fairbanks, Indiana. Reg is Ojibwe, Susan is Iroquois.
You know, the historians and the geologists and all them that do all this stuff, they want to say the Indian people came from the Bering Straits out of Russia and Mongolia and all those places. You know, where do they get this stuff? Try to get everybody to believe that we came from Russia, now that area.
yeah.
What do you think?
No, well, we have our scrolls, we have our history, we have our background, we have our ancestors. These people are the ones that speak here. These ancestors from these mound builders, they're the ones that carry the legends.
I know what my creation story is, where I came from. We didn't come from Europe or any of those other places. We're the people, the first people. We were here.
What are Reg and Susan saying? Might Indiana's first immigrants not have immigrated at all? Instead of coming here, might they have instead somehow simply been placed here? I'm intrigued by living in a world so open to interpretation.
Can you imagine it's quiet here today? 1,200 years ago, this was a bustling society. We just celebrated Indiana's bicentennial. That was only 200 years ago. There's so much more history to be explored here in Indiana that we don't think about.
You can't help thinking about it here. We're at the Angel Mounds Historic Site on the Ohio River just outside Evansville. Angel Mounds was once a thriving religious, political, and trade center for thousands of Indiana's earliest immigrants. The earthen mounds you see here are not natural features of the land. They were constructed more than a millennium ago to serve some very specific purposes.
The structure behind me is what we refer to as Mound A. It's the 10th largest mound structure in the United States. And it was the social center of this village site here at Angel Site. The chief would have lived on top of it. Ceremonies would have occurred around it. It was the focal point of the entire community.
What does it feel like to touch something that's that old?
I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty awesome.
This is Michelle Greenan. She's an archaeologist at the Angel Mounds Historic Site, and she's got a couple of artifacts she'd like us to take a look at. The artifacts were discovered near Angel Mounds, but they didn't start out there.
This is a point. So archaeologists call this a point rather than an arrowhead, because arrowheads really weren't around yet. It's made of a special kind of material called Knife River chalcedony. So what makes that cool is that that material isn't found here. It's a raw material that you can really only get from the region of North Dakota. Another bit here is this. This is called steatite, and this is actually a hairpin. So literally a hairpin. So the steatite was traded from the region of the Appalachians where this material comes from. We found obsidian from, say, the Rockies. We have bear teeth, grizzly bear teeth, that are also coming from the Rocky Mountains. We have shell coming from the Gulf Coast. We found shark's teeth of recent species sharks, right, that are coming from the East Coast. We found copper from the Great Lakes. So how did it get here? Well, the cool thing about this is that trade was incredibly important for Native American culture. So Native Americans have been in Indiana, we know, at least for 12,000 years. That's an incredible history with many diverse nations. And those nations were trading with each other. They would have shared ideas, they would have shared technologies, they were making alliances and negotiating with each other much, much, much earlier than any European stepped foot in Indiana, certainly.
What became of these early immigrants? The people who built and lived among these mounds?
You had about 1,000 to 2,000 people living here. They were not taking care of the land. They were constantly cultivating the property. And then around the year 1300, North America went through what we call the little ice age. So the climate changed by about 3 or 4 degrees, and the crops they were growing here, which were from Central America region, were not doing so well at that point. So the soil wasn't producing the crops as it should, and then the climate changed, and it just was not enough to support this location. So the people abandoned the location and scattered.
Do I look good?
I have so enjoyed getting to know Peter Chung and his wife, May. I made their acquaintance while falling in love with the snow peas and shrimp with white sauce at their restaurant, the House at Chung, on the northeast side of Indianapolis.
Now, are these breakfast cookies?
More like snack, okay? More like snack. You try it.
Okay.
Yeah, let me try it.
Now, how do you eat?
Use your mouth. Okay.
Use your mouth?
Right.
But our friendship really began to blossom when one of us invited the other of us over for a bite to eat, some conversation, and to share a laugh, or two, or three.
You were not born here.
No, I born in China.
You were born in China.
Right.
Where in China?
Canton.
Canton.
Right. When I come to USA in 1971, I'm about 19 years old.
Did you come with your family or by yourself?
I come by myself.
Peter's and my beginnings might have been a little different, a lot different really, but there's real magic in recognizing the ways two wildly divergent journeys through life can somehow lead us to the same place at the same time with the same basic idea, to be friends, to get to know one another better.
This is my sister's kid. They get married. They get married on June, and they get married in September. So they come out, okay. But this one still looking for a job.
That's one still looking for a job.
Still looking for a job, right. That's one thing.
Peter ended up taking me with him when he had to run some errands. And I gotta tell you, you haven't gone shopping till you hit the Asia Mart with Peter Chung. Tofu?
This is the tofu.
This looks like birdseed.
Oh, yeah.
Wild sweet purple rice.
Okay.
Is it good?
I never tried. I don't
No.
know. I do. Very good flavor. You make a soup.
Eel.
Wow. She is the boss.
She's
She's the owner. She's a good help. Wow. Oh, that's a lobster. This is a rice cooker, teapot, the lunch meat. Okay, it's very popular. Okay,
all right.
easy, more like a
I
ham.
but we would have thought of that as spam. Is that right? By the way, Peter's household includes one other member, Peter's mother. Spending time with Peter, his wife, and his mother gets me to thinking about the ways life can change from generation to generation. As the members of an immigrant family get more and more accustomed to living in their new adopted world.
It's called assimilation, and basically this is how it works. And it's the same as it always has been. Folks who come to our country want to fit in and feel welcomed. And typically it's the first generation that really comes and sticks together in one community. They know the same language and speak the same language. They eat the same foods and have the same cultural customs. But in reality, that generation wants to have a better life for their children. And it's often the second generation that becomes more fluent in English and more integrated into our community. But the best thing about it all is that they're all called Hoosiers, and we're glad they're here.
One day you're the new immigrant. The next day it seems like you've been here forever, and it's other people who are the immigrants. All across the Hoosier state, we see brick and mortar reminders of different cultures and ethnic groups, once new to Indiana, but each now a long-standing part of our community. The Cathedral of St. Francis Xavier on the banks of the Wabash River at Vincennes, with its records of baptisms, marriages, and burials dating back to 1749, reminds us that the first people of African origin to come into what became Indiana were brought here as slaves of the French, who founded Vincennes in 1732. The Athenaeum in Indianapolis, originally known as Das Deutsche Haus, or the German House, helps tell the story of German-speaking people who were some of the earliest Europeans to come to what is now Indiana, to take their turn as new immigrants who eventually completely assimilated. The name Deutsche Haus was changed to Athenaeum during the World War I era, when anti-German sentiment ran high. The name has never been changed back. Steel mills and oil refineries on the shore of Lake Michigan tell the story of the wave of immigration that swept northwestern Indiana a century ago, as people sought jobs in the oil and steel industries in hopes of securing a better life.
There were people from Europe, particularly Eastern Europe immigrants. And so this was truly a melting pot of individuals, Polish, Greek, Slovakians.
You still see the indications of this Eastern European immigration carved in stone when you look at the buildings of Lake County, Indiana. And the presence of this building, the Mexican consulate, on the Near East side of downtown Indianapolis, reminds us of a more recent and ongoing wave of immigration. People from Mexico and from other Central and South American Spanish-speaking countries, known collectively as Indiana's Latino community. There has, of course, been a Latino presence in Indiana for a long time, but starting around the year 2000, the number of Latinos coming into Indiana increased dramatically. Our new Latino neighbors have come to Indiana, bringing with them the passion, the talent, the expertise, good intentions, and the work ethic needed to be a vital part of life in the 21st century in the state of Indiana. This is a community so vibrant, so organized, and so well established that it adds to the life of our community with a newspaper, actually several newspapers, as well as magazines and shopping guides. And it even supports a broadcast facility.
12:11 minutitos y los dejo con Jennifer López y Gente de Zona, ni tú ni yo.
Welcome to Exitos, 1590 on your AM dial.
In 2002,
yes.
How many people, like Hispanics, would have lived in Indianapolis?
The number had been growing since the late 1990s, and the estimate was around 250,000.
The gentleman with me here, Sergio Aguilera, was the first Mexican consul when the Mexican consulate opened here in Indianapolis back in 2002. But when Sergio's tour of duty in Indianapolis ended and it was time for him to return to Mexico, well, he didn't exactly return to Mexico.
You stayed, and one of the attractions you told us about was that you married here.
He fell in love with a girl from Indiana, but that's not all he fell in love with. Indiana basketball, more precisely, Indiana basketball at Butler University.
For me personally, it's the best sporting event of any kind in the city. The atmosphere, the field house.
I think you yell at a game, don't you yell?
Sometimes.
Well, what's the
when the ref makes a big mistake?
Oh,
that's annoying.
Oh. 2017, 2018. Are you going to go to the game?
Absolutely. I'll be here on opening day, like always, with my wife sitting right there.
You really are a Hoosier, aren't you?
I am a real, true blue Hoosier.
We met in sophomore year, I think, right?
Yeah, we met in Dr. Pietри's lab.
Yeah, we both applied for the same job. And I remember, like, as Guy was giving me orientation, and she's like, oh, there's another girl working here. And I was like, oh, I wonder who it is. Like,
that's it. And my whole thought was, oh, it'll just be me. And then I met you, and I was like, crap, she probably has her stuff together.
I'm not sure if you can see the family resemblance, but the young lady on the left is my granddaughter, Demi Zeller. The young lady on the right is Demi's friend, Sena Majid, who happens to be Muslim.
Interesting, though, because our lab was kind of made up of a bunch of different diverse backgrounds. I mean, Ezgi was from Turkey, Eva is Latina, and then...
Sena and Demi met when they were students at Indiana University, Purdue University at Indianapolis, also known as IUPUI. Turns out meeting someone from a different background is pretty easy to do at IUPUI.
Saya adalah IUPUI.
We have students from 145 or so different countries. And when you add in the ethnicities of our own country, we have well over 150 different ethnic groups on our campus.
And it's not just IUPUI, of course. At campuses all across Indiana, students are enjoying a richer, more fulfilling college experience thanks to the vast cultural diversity of each institution's student body.
At Purdue University, at any one time, we have several thousand international students.
What was cool was you were very lax about me asking the most stupid questions like, oh, what's this called? Or why do you wear this? Or what is on your hands? And you would be like, yeah, this is what it is.
The far away and unfamiliar is easy to describe in black and white, and in very simplistic terms, those people are all this way. But when you meet people from different countries, you realize that they represent that country, but they also represent a region of that country, or a particular experience of that country, or a particular history in that country. And then you discover the world is a little bit more complicated than you thought it was growing up here in Indiana. And that complicated question becomes a good one, because it challenges you to think in new ways about problems or opportunities to work together.
Senna invited my granddaughter to join her at Friday prayers.
Yeah, and so before prayer, I showed up a little bit early with Senna, and her friend gave me this to wear, and I actually hated it on me because I was like, man, my face looks really fat. I don't know how Senna makes herself look so good in a hijab, but your friends were really open to me, which I don't know why I was admittedly, I was really nervous about like not fitting in or being judged in a way, and I wasn't at all.
What I'd like to have you do is I want you to imagine your friend that's the grade below you. I want you to give them some advice.
At East Allen University in Fort Wayne, an early college academy for high school students, you see the same thing. A culturally diverse student body that can teach itself a valuable lesson. No textbooks required. I'm talking about the lesson of acceptance.
The different religions that we have here, obviously the different ethnic groups, the different food choices that we have here, that they, different cultures that they have. I think it's just more about acceptance, about accepting other people from where they are at. And I think that's important for not only the student, but for our country.
When I'm looking around here, I think I could probably guess I'm seeing 5 nationalities, you think? Do you like that? Do you like going to a school where it's different kind of kids?
Yes.
Why?
Because they have their own point of view and not the same point of view as you.
Fort Wayne's mayor, Tom Henry, couldn't agree more.
Fortunately, our community has diversified significantly over the years. And as mayor, I've tried real hard to keep the welcome mat out.
Yeah, we dress different, and we might think differently about our spirituality, but we both struggle with homework, we both struggle with boys, we both struggle with parent problems. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like the United Nations at a Purdue commencement, and I have always said that I wish we'd put a green card in every diploma and keep that talent. I think it's wonderful when a student comes to IU or Purdue, and I hope that if they go home, I hope we send them home a friend to America and a friend to Indiana.
Some people cross oceans and continents to come to Indiana for an education. Others come post-graduation for the chance to get involved in Indiana's international business environment. This open to the public celebration of Chinese New Year allows Indiana's Chinese community to share its culture with the rest of us. By the way, that gentleman you see performing on stage, well, there's more to him than just a tremendous singing voice. He is Hong Lei, the Consul General of China in Chicago.
Nowadays, we enjoy a very good relationship with Indiana, and more Chinese companies are coming to invest here. And we also witnessed a lot of Indiana companies doing business, investing in China. This kind of exchanges actually bring benefits to peoples of Indiana and the people in China. So we think it is very important for us to strengthen this very important tie.
This important tie goes back a long way. Nearly 100 years ago, Eli Lilly and Company had already begun to establish a close relationship with the people of China by being the first American pharmaceutical company to open an office in Shanghai. Nowadays, the Chinese community in Indiana is so well established that it publishes 2 different bi-monthly Chinese language newspapers.
I think it is very much important for the two peoples of our two countries to know each other. And we should be open to each other's culture, appreciate each other's culture. So we think it is very much important for us to enhance understanding between us. So that's the reason why we would like to have this kind of cultural exchanges between Indiana and China.
Homegrown companies like Eli Lilly and Cummins Engine tap into a deep, wide pool of talent, bringing business people and scientists to Indiana from all around the world. Think, for example, of the people from India who now call Indiana home.
There are probably 10,000 families from the Indian subcontinent in the city alone, and maybe much larger in statewide, maybe up to 20,000 plus in the state of Indiana.
That's a far cry from what my good friend K.P. Singh first experienced when, as a member of the Sikh faith, wearing a turban, he arrived in Indianapolis back in 1967.
We have come a long way. On my first day on the job as a planner in the city county building, somebody must have noticed me, and that afternoon's paper, Indianapolis News, carried a blurb under the heading, "Did you notice?" A turbaned and a bearded man looking every bit like a Maharaja reviewing a children's exhibit at 7:30 in the morning in the city county building lobby. And somebody brought it to my attention because it was supposed to be a funny column. A black cat has walked by, an alien flying saucer has come and dropped off an alien here. And so I kind of fell into that category in the sense that they had not seen a Sikh.
Now there are close to 2,500 Sikh families in the Indianapolis metropolitan area alone. And then there are the Indian people in Indiana of the Hindu faith. Their recently completed temple, rising up from the cornfields on the far east side of Indianapolis, serves as a wholehearted confirmation of their commitment to remain an integral, permanent part of our central Indiana community.
You know, I can back up at least to my years in business in a global company, Eli Lilly and Company, where it was really clear to be effective all over the world, or even to be fully effective here in the U.S., you had to have a real blend of talents. You had to have people of all backgrounds who were comfortable in different cultures and business environments. But when you have that, it's very powerful, and I think we see that happening in Indiana now.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and konbanwa.
At the Indiana Roof Ballroom in downtown Indianapolis, the Japan-American Society of Indiana celebrates the close working relationship that exists between companies from Japan and the people in Indiana who have welcomed those companies to make their home here.
Indiana is now home to 280 Japanese business facilities. The 280 facilities generates 58,000 jobs here in Indiana.
All our Japanese companies that are here, a lot of them are located in small town Indiana.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank goodness. It saved them.
Yes.
This is Bill Graham, mayor of Scottsburg, Indiana. He can tell you firsthand about the good that can happen when a company from outside the U.S. decides to invest in a small town Indiana community.
The mid-'80s, we had quite an economic downturn in the United States, and by 1987, we were really in some desolate positions in Scott County and Scottsburg. Our unemployment rate was 25%.
The much-needed turnabout began when the first Japanese company decided to establish a manufacturing facility in Scottsburg. Other companies from other countries soon followed, resulting in an unemployment rate that shrank to as low as 1.5%.
We have several different countries represented here and have manufacturing here. We have the Italians that has a company here called Elpia. Of course, we have the Japanese. We have some French companies that has been here. We've had the Koreans here. We just had many different nationalities here, and all of them has brought something new to the community and something of great value. The diversity that's brought here has just been fantastic.
For Dan Sigg, Vice President of the Ramsey Popcorn Company over in Harrison County, a culturally diverse workforce is something not yet achieved, but very definitely desired.
Our workforce is not as diversified as we'd like to see it. The population in our area is made up primarily of white European descent. We don't have a lot of opportunity to hire people, not a lot of applicants that are in the county. A diverse group of people with different experiences, different backgrounds, different skills. You put that group together, you're going to achieve a much higher level objective than what you originally would have if all you had was the same group with the same experience, same backgrounds.
If Harrison County is a little lacking in ethnic and cultural diversity, the same can't be said for the family of Eva North. Eva's the mayor of Corden, Harrison County's county seat.
I have a very large family. This family has developed into what we call an international family. My son is biracial, which this was back in the 70s when people weren't really accepting of things like that, but my family embraced that. And then now we have Koreans in our family, we have Norwegians, we have Mexicans, and in this little town, we had a quinceañeras for one of our Mexican nieces, and then we've had events like weddings and the birthday events and things, and the people in the room don't understand each other. But we know, we do understand each other.
With a background like this, who better suited than Mayor Eva North to bring a little diversity into this community?
We will toast to Japan and Indiana's past, present, and future. Kanpai.
Meanwhile, back at the Japan American Society of Indiana's gala celebration, the evening concludes with a rousing performance of Samurai Sword Soul. But while some immigrants can celebrate a good career and a good life thanks to a thriving international economy, other new arrivals face the more daunting prospects of unfamiliar surroundings, unreliable money, and unanticipated legal concerns. Clinics like this one, offering legal consultation without the legal fees, are one good way to make life more manageable for new arrivals of more modest means. For Terry Downs, Executive Director of the Immigrant Welcome Center, the group that provides these and a multitude of other services, it all boils down to this: trying to understand what it might be like to be a new arrival, and then trying to figure out what we can do to help.
I always have said people who don't like immigrants are the people who don't know any immigrants, because once you hear their stories and once you realize who they are and what they have gone through to be here in the United States, you can't help but admire them.
That's a sentiment shared by Cole Varga, Executive Director of Exodus Refugee Immigration, a refugee resettlement agency.
It's really fundamental to who we are as Americans to welcome people in their time of need and when they're down on their luck, and give them that second chance for a new life. It's how the country was built, and it's how the country will succeed again. One of our largest groups that we've worked with in the past decade have been the Burmese community here in Indiana, and so Indianapolis in particular has had a high volume of Burmese refugees, about 16,000 or so. That's in addition to Fort Wayne, that's had maybe 10 to 12,000 Burmese refugees resettle.
What we tried to do is to set up our own Ellis Island type of environment where they could come in and we would do all we could to help them assimilate. And the one thing that we realized very quickly was they couldn't get a job, and they couldn't get transportation, and they couldn't get good health care, and they couldn't get housing if they didn't speak the language.
Learning English is the foundation on which all other education and assimilation rests. Immigrant kids get a chance to catch up after way too many years of irregular, interrupted schooling, with after-school programs like Hope for Tomorrow on the south side of Indianapolis.
Hope for Tomorrow exists to provide services, specifically Burmese at the moment, and other immigration to help them overcoming barriers towards a successful life and barriers in this greater country.
And so what we're doing here right now is this after-school program, and we have this 3 nights a week, and it's ranging from tutoring to enrichment, especially in areas of reading and English. Our mission here is really quite simple, and that mission is just to befriend and to serve and to ultimately help.
Many times, immigrants and refugees are met with suspicion or doubt. Some native-born Hoosiers feel that, they're taking our jobs, or that they're here for public benefits, that they don't qualify for those types of things.
It's a huge benefit to us to have people from other countries. They're not here just to get by, they're here to actually restart their lives and contribute to their new communities.
Hello, welcome. I'm Justin Thang from Hope for Tomorrow. This is my mom and dad.
I'm one of the very few non-Burmese in my neighborhood, and I really love having them as my neighbors.
We would like to let the people who live in Indiana know that we are proud and so grateful to be living in this state. This is the message we would like to give to Hoosiers. Thank you.
It catches you off guard as you approach the intersection of 30th Street and Emerson Avenue on the northeast side of Indianapolis. This is An Lac Temple, a Buddhist temple built in 2008 to serve the Vietnamese Buddhist community of central Indiana. Well, how many Vietnamese would you think live in around Indianapolis?
Talking about the number of Vietnamese around here in the metropolitan of the Indianapolis, include the Donut County, yes. I think about 10,000 Vietnamese.
10,000.
Yes.
That's a lot of people. Oh, it's a gorgeous color. Now what's this called?
Jackfruit.
Jackfruit. Long Nguyen and his wife Mylene are two of those 10,000 people who began life in Vietnam but now live in central Indiana. And let's see, is that your mom?
My mom.
I picked her out. She's so cute. Yeah. And this is your mom.
Yes.
And look at you. I love your wedding picture. It is so cute. Mylene is a software engineer, and as you might guess from the side of his electric car, Long works for the city of Indianapolis. And you've been an engineer for the city of Indianapolis for how long now?
I've been with the city of Indianapolis for 26 years.
Long and Mylene came to Indiana in 1980 as part of what came to be known as the Vietnamese boat people.
From here, we take a boat, go out, go across the Cambodia.
5 treacherous days on the boat, hanging on for dear life. 2 months in Thailand refugee camps. 6 months at the Bataan Refugee Processing Center in the Philippines. Giant steps that carried them, finally, to a new life in Indiana. Now, every Sunday morning, finds them at An Lac Temple, chanting, praying, and receiving a blessing of teachings from the Buddha, delivered by the abbess of An Lac Temple, Thich Nguyen Thien. For those of us who don't speak Vietnamese, the temple provides earphones that allow you to listen to an English translation.
So the peace, the world peace, comes from the individual's peace.
Buddhism is not the religious. It's kind of philosophy.
A way of life, a way of life. Buddhism is really a way of life. How do we live our life so that we can have a happy life, peaceful life?
Yes, the Buddha doesn't say that what religion is the best, but any teachings, anyone who gives you the teachings, and those teachings give you peace, happiness, forgiveness, sharing with others, sharing with the difficulties, with the happiness of others, then that is the best religion for you to follow.
Everybody is our friend. Every religious is good religious. So anybody can come. Our neighbors, surrounding, Americans surrounding.
Yeah, what did your neighbors think about all of a sudden a temple in their neighborhood?
At first, they're surprised. Yeah, they're surprised. They have a lot of questions. But by the time we worship there, friendly, and we kind of, make the people, feel better.
Is that your son?
This is my son.
Yes. Long and Mylene's son David is an assistant professor at the University of Texas at San Antonio. He also has a law practice in Indianapolis. Long and Mylene have a daughter, too, Mina, who's a pharmacist with St. Vincent's Hospital in Indianapolis. Mina, like so many second-generation immigrants, understands the balancing act of existing in 2 different cultures at the same time.
When you go to school, you're in, a typical American culture and life. And then when you come home, you turn on the Vietnamese side and you speak Vietnamese and you have different foods and just a completely different culture.
The last thing Sunday morning at An Lac Temple, before everyone parts company, the entire congregation joins together to nourish their bodies with a vegetarian feast. Incidentally, several non-Vietnamese members of the community have stopped by as invited guests for Sunday dinner too. As Long and the other members of An Lac Temple see it, extending an open invitation is all part of what it means to be a good neighbor.
That is very important. The good neighbor is the thing we have to, we have to be. We just do whatever we can to help people. Yeah, and I think that is the American way, I believe.
May you have a happy day, happy month, a happy year, a happy lifetime, okay? And I wish you all find peace in your life.
It still breaks my heart when I think about what I read last February. A group of fourth graders from Pleasant Run Elementary School here in central Indiana, who call themselves the Panther Bots, had to contend with ethnic slurs after winning a robotics competition at Plainfield High School. As Angel, Manuel, Devlin, Elijah, and Jose were leaving the competition they had just won, they couldn't help hearing the hateful taunts from some of the other parents, as well as from some of the children. Things like, "Go back to Mexico," and other things I don't feel comfortable repeating here. It turned out okay. The Panther Bots didn't let it get to them. They kept on winning, and they ended up competing with kids from around the world in the VEX IQ World Championship in Louisville. But I certainly look forward to the day when none of us feel the need to lash out at one another in such a way, out of fear or resentment or downright hatred. I look forward to that day. There is perhaps no more joyful expression of our ability to reach out and enjoy one another's handiwork and company than this. From a certain point of view, it's just acres and acres of concrete and asphalt parking lot, anchoring acres and acres of second-generation strip malls on the northwest side of Indianapolis. But slow down, turn in, and get to know what's going on at the International Marketplace. More than 50 golden opportunities to nourish your body and quite possibly your soul. Gracious, honest, mouth-watering offerings from a dozen or more countries on 5 continents. What do you hope when people walk in your door, they look in here, and what do they think?
I want them to feel like they are like walking to their home, to a place where they are comfortable to sit, and a place where they have like a friendly faces here to welcome them.
At Abyssinia, Trie Yuma was kind enough to demonstrate the extraordinary way she wraps her head, all the while preparing me a perfect cup of Ethiopian coffee. Vijay Singh, who came to the United States in 2000, owns and operates both the Apna Kitchen and the adjoining Apna Grocery. What do you think about Midwesterners?
It's good. It is my profession is always to work hard and create something for the city and state.
So they come in and they say, "I want a seat for 2."
Yes.
Our tables out
here?
here?
The tables will be here. All this area will be for the tables.
When I first met Elizabeth Juarez, her restaurant, La Mestiza, was still a big, empty, unfinished room. But Elizabeth knows how to visualize and then make it happen. Look at La Mestiza now. Okay, now you have to solve a problem I have when I go to a Chinese restaurant. I say, are you supposed to pick it up, the whole thing, and take a bite off of it?
Yeah,
or are you supposed to cut it
style.
with your chopsticks?
The Chinese style, they bite half and then
They put it back. Okay. And the International Marketplace has a secret weapon. Cedric Pearson and Darnell Perkins. Through their company, D-Sound Media, they created a music video about their neighborhood that can be summed up in just one sweet little word. Welcome. Yes, the people of Indiana are being welcomed to all the great restaurants at the International Marketplace. But what about all the other offerings of goods and services you're going to find here? It's way more than just restaurants. It's things unavailable anywhere else nearby. Talk about international. The workforce alone at Saraga International Grocery includes people from more than 23 countries.
South Asia, Asian, Arabian, Central American, South American.
Meanwhile, the Indiana Discount Mall is the perfect place for new immigrant business people to set up shop and establish themselves.
What about all of this that makes you feel the most proud?
Well, many things. One of them that we were helping our community, developing new business and making new immigrants here understand what is America about, and obviously pay taxes to contribute to this beautiful country.
And the International Marketplace even has its own movie theater, the Georgetown 14 Cinemas.
Georgetown 14 Cinema, where everybody comes. And I tell you what, we got nothing but great things going on down here. Tonight we have an Indian premiere, Kitu Nudan Garata. I believe I pronounced that right. I hope I did. Georgetown 14 Cinemas, your home away from home.
We have covered a lot of ground today. A lot of people from a lot of places.
I'm gonna make a change for once in my life.
We don't all look alike. We don't all sound alike. And we probably don't all think alike either. But at the end of the day, we're all Hoosiers, aren't we? And I trust you think that's a pretty good thing. After all, should looking at your neighbor be like looking into a mirror? That would be pretty boring pretty quickly, I think.
Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their needs?
When the song says welcome, they're talking about welcome to the International Marketplace. But it's also welcome from you to me, or from me to you, to come on in and look around and get to know another person's life. Let's hope we can continue to base our attitudes and actions on that one word, welcome, as we go about our daily lives in this international state of Indiana. I'm Judy O'Bannon. Thanks for watching.
You have a lot of Russian clients, don't you?
Maybe 30%. Yeah.
You cut Russian men's hair a lot, don't you?
My haircut is quite expensive. Russian man doesn't want to spend so much money for haircuts, so...
Are they cheaper than U.S. men?
I will say yes.
Generous support for this program provided by John Herbst, Andrew Halter, Jerry and Rosemary Semler, Donald R. Wilsey, the Midwest Open Air Museum's Coordinating Council, the Indiana Federation of Business and Professional Women, Indiana India Business Council, Don and Jen Kniebel, Valerie and Chuck Myers, the Bible Family Fund of the Denver Foundation, and the O'Bannon Foundation, a fund of the Indianapolis Foundation.